Roughly a month ago, the gold scalping AI was one of the most popular bots on the MQL5 marketplace. However, since then, it blew up pretty significantly, and the developer has now come back with a new version, the AI Gold Scalper MT5. So today I want to talk about what happened, why did the bot end up doing fairly poorly, as well as evaluate the current bot and see if it's different, if it's a different strategy, and if it's a more viable or more sustainable system. This video is sponsored by Prosperity Algo and our free Golden Time Bomb Expert Advisor. Do you want to make 100+% annual returns through automating the London breakout and the opening range breakout? Then click the link in the description. So around 1 month ago, I made this video here reviewing his previous bot, and at the time, this bot was effectively at the top of the MQL5 marketplace. It was doing really well, and even after this video, it became exceptionally popular and had quite a few different sales. And then in my comments here, I had a few different people chatting about the bot, but I learned that from this gentleman here, that the bot actually did blow up ultimately, and he came back with a new bot. And that didn't really surprise me, because if I actually go back and look at what his previous bot was doing, it's a very simple strategy which people have been running the past few months on gold, where essentially you just always go long with an enormous stop loss. And provided gold was in a really strong uptrend and was always making higher highs, obviously this is going to work, because eventually you're going to just hit your take profit because you're in such a strong uptrend. However, if that uptrend reverses or if it kind of stabilizes, and that's what we've been seeing now with a bit more tariff certainty, or people are starting to, the White House is starting to make trade deals, or at least is hinting that they're starting to make trade deals, we've now seen gold start to kind of go down from its all-time highs. Now, when that happened, and the trend it's still in somewhat of an uptrend, but it started to go down fairly aggressively, a lot of the people who were running the strategy likely got margin called. Because if you're using an enormous stop loss, you're using high degrees of leverage, and typically you just let price kind of go back to your take profit level, if you have a much deeper drawdown than you would expect, you're ultimately going to get margin called, or you might just blow your account. And that's what happened with this particular account. So people were not very pleased, and that's why the developer deleted this current EA, because most likely the reviews were terrible, and has now come back with a new EA, which seems pretty similar. So that's what happened to the old bot. Let's see what's up with the new bot. And the new bot is brand new, and it has a lot of the same wording on the sales page, where he discusses he's using AI, GPT 4.0 by OpenAI, and it's using a bunch of exceptionally complex bots. One thing here is that GPT 4.0, I don't believe is a CNN. It's a large language model. So maybe it has some CNNs behind it, but he's mixing up some of his terminology here too. He's also saying that he's targeting low drawdowns and a good Sharpe ratio, all of which would make sense. But ultimately, I think it's still very similar to his previous bot, in which it looks too good to be true, with these magnificent backtests with not really too much of anything which we can go by. So interesting, but we're not really learning anything super key. I can now go and click to his signal here, and it actually pops us over to an MT4 signal. So perhaps when he deleted the old bot, he still had another signal going someplace else, where he's able to link to that, but maybe he's just running one account too. What I can see here so far is obviously the signal looks exceptional, but once again, it's running on our favorite scam broker, the WellTrade Live, and this is the preferred broker if you're trying to manipulate the signals, so don't trust WellTrade. Every single developer who's selling a scam bot uses them. I venture they get some sort of kickback from the broker. Perhaps they're referring clients to the broker, or probably even more easily what they're able to do is just even get paid by the broker to provide promotional materials. And we can see that his bot so far here, we're having a 100% win rate, so we have no idea how this bot actually works. Ultimately, for us to be able to critically evaluate a bot, we need to see wins and losers, right? And ultimately with this one, if we only see wins, we can't really evaluate performance. Something to note is it does appear to be bidirectional. There are buys and sells, which also makes sense. And ultimately, that it is good that it's taking both trades, because perhaps it's a little bit more adapted to the current market regime, but we will have to run a backtest to see. And here I've taken the liberty of running a backtest I ran 1 year. It seems to only have one small loss, or not one small loss, one big loss, but only one loss in the entire backtest. And I think we're seeing that in terms of losing trades. It had one loss. And if we go to the actual signal, we can see that like his previous bot, it's just taking a bunch of pretty random looking trades, some of which are short, some of which are long. There's not really much for rhyme or reason as to what exactly it's doing. So I'm not quite sure if there's even a real strategy behind it. I'm sure there's some sort of indicator which is telling it what to do, but doesn't really appear to be using AI. You are able to put in, he is telling us to put in a web request for OpenAI's API, but he doesn't, from what I can see, have any place to put an API key. And he's not giving any indications here in regards to if it's using a certain indicator. Like sometimes you'll see Bollinger Bands written or EMAs or whatnot, and that can tell us how it's working. But really, there's not anything particularly interesting here so far. So I think once again, he's just kind of preying on the fact that he can sell a lot of bots with this enormous stop loss strategy, because ultimately it takes a while to blow up just mathematically. Running a visual backtest here too. Once again, we're seeing that it's going quite quick and there's no indicators. So we don't really know how the strategy works, but at the same time, it's probably not a history reader. It's probably just enormously over-optimized to something in the past. There were some things written on the chart. Maybe it gives us an indication. Time cannot trade. Okay. Perhaps the time-based strategy too could be a time-based breakout. If we look at some of the in times, it appears to be fairly sporadic. Like some of them are trading Asia session, New York session, London session. So maybe not time-based either, unless it's a like beginning of session type strategy. So yeah, not a ton that we can go by, unfortunately, because there's no indicators, there's not a ton of description regarding the actual strategy, and at the same time, there's no actual API key for the OpenAI API. Therefore, it's probably not actually using AI. Yeah, it seems like a heavily manipulated bot, just like his previous one. Maybe this one's a bit different. Maybe it's just a new signal, but unfortunately, running this type of system will always blow up unless the market is constantly in an uptrend. And even if the market was just constantly in an uptrend, you'd be better off just buying with leverage, right? So if you're using this exact same system, you should just hold gold or just buy some gold futures, right? Because at the same time, you would have the same effect, but with significantly less trading costs. So there's really not a real strategy here. It's just a almost pure manipulation made to sell bots. So don't buy this, not a great bot. Interesting to see that he's back so quickly, because I think he made at least $100,000 selling bots in the previous one. So enough people fell for it that most likely people will also fall for this one. But hopefully this video at least discourages some people from buying it, because ultimately this bot won't make you money long term, because there's just no positive expected value and there's no real strategy here. Guys, hope you liked the video. Have a great day, and leave me a comment if you found something which I did not. Take care.